Good afternoon, this is Marshall Davis. It is a cold, wet day here in New Hampshire. We are getting the remnants of this hurricane that's been coming through the eastern United States. So I thought it would be a good day to stay inside and ruminate on non-duality. Today I'm going to take a break from that series that I've started on biblical stories of spiritual awakening, and I'm going to address a question that I am asked regularly by listeners. They may ask the question in different ways, but always comes down to the same thing. They want to know what spiritual practice would help them to spiritually awaken. Now, most of these people have tried all sorts of spiritual disciplines and techniques. They have meditated until they can't sit any longer. They have engaged in all types of contemplative prayer. They have been on countless retreats led by various spiritual teachers. They have read spiritual books and listened to teachers online and in person. They have satsanged until they can't satsang any longer. They have walked miles of labyrinths. They have retreated mantras and they have chanted. They don't know what they're doing wrong, why it's taken so long, but they can't seem to break through into non-dual awareness. Now, many have had dramatic spiritual experiences, but those experiences come and go. There is no permanent, enduring change. They want to know if there's any spiritual practice or discipline that I could recommend to help them. Now, I tell them ultimately it is not a matter of technique, but of grace. Jesus said it was like a sharecropper who was plowing a field and suddenly he unearthed a treasure with the plow. He was not looking for a treasure. He was just going about his daily job and suddenly gold was spilling out at his feet. So this farmer quickly sold everything he had and he bought that field. That was my experience. I had given up all hope of spiritual breakthrough. I had left the spiritual search and I was into atheism and humanism and skepticism. I had concluded that the whole spiritual quest was mostly a racket. And then, out of left field, came a falling away of everything. And what remained was not a thing, was not a religion or a spirituality or a worldview or a set of beliefs or a philosophy. Nothing was left. But through that nothingness, reality was seen. And it was seen that I was that reality. And that is all that there is. At the time, I was not doing any particular spiritual discipline or practice. I had given up meditation and prayer. I was not listening to spiritual teachers. I was not reading spiritual books. I never even heard the word non-duality. The one thing I was doing was searching for truth. I no longer thought of it, though, as spiritual truth, but I was still looking for truth. I was willing to do anything to find truth. I was willing to give up everything, including my religion and my beliefs and my ministry, in order to know what was truly real. That was all that mattered. My career as a pastor no longer mattered. I was willing to give that up, and I did give it up. My religious tradition did not matter. I was willing to leave it all behind. All that mattered was that before I died, I needed to know the truth of the universe. And that relentless drive for truth at all costs, to know the truth no matter what the price, was my only spiritual practice, if you want to call that a spiritual practice. Now, whether that is what prompted spiritual awakening or not, I don't know. It felt like grace, still feels like pure grace. But that was the only practice that I was doing, and therefore the only one that I can recommend. I think Jesus recommended the same thing. That is why Jesus called his disciples to drop everything and follow him. He said, "No one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God." He said, "Anyone who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who does not take up his cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds their life will lose it. Whoever loses their life for my sake will find it." And he's speaking here as truth, as reality. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says, "Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, and he who seeks finds. To him who knocks it will be opened." Now the Greek text here is best translated, keep on asking, keep on seeking, keep on knocking. He is teaching persistence and perseverance. To illustrate the point, he told the story of a widow who demanded justice from an unjust judge. The judge did not grant it to her because he cared about justice. The judge was a crook. But the woman wore her out so much by her persistence that he granted her what she asked. Jesus says that's how we are to engage in the spiritual quest. He said if a corrupt human judge could do that, how much more would the eternal God? Perseverance, endurance. Jesus says whoever endures to the end will be saved. So it's not really a matter of what particular spiritual technique works. This is not like Harry Potter magic, where we have to have the words of the spell just right. This is not about manipulating the Star Wars force behind the cosmos. This is no trick or gimmick. There's no particular spiritual path or school or tradition or religion that has it down pat, although there are a lot of spiritual schools and traditions and religions who will say they're the only way, or at least they are the best way, and their teacher is the best. It's not about a spiritual practice or a spiritual discipline. It's about single-mindedness in pursuit of truth. Soren Kierkegaard called it purity of heart. In his book entitled Purity of Heart is to will one thing. That one thing was a lesson taught by Jesus in the story of Mary and Martha. Martha was going here and there, doing this and that, where Mary was single-minded in her quest for truth. Jesus called it the one thing necessary. That focus and determination is what matters. So what is my recommendation? It is to pursue truth as if your life depends upon it, because it does, spiritually speaking. Now, if that means to do meditation, then meditate. If that means for you reading spiritual books, then read them. If you want to listen to spiritual teachers and go on retreats, go ahead. But don't expect them to provide you the answer. This is not a transaction where you put in your time and you get a reward. It's about divine grace. But it seems like we need to go down all these paths and exhaust all these options that come into our minds that we seem led to do until we have exhausted all of that. And we learn for ourselves that these are all dead ends. Now, if I told you they were dead ends, you wouldn't believe me, and you shouldn't believe me, because everyone has to discover that for themselves. So I tell people to do what they're doing until they find. Keep inquiring. Now, in non-dual circles, it seems like self-inquiry is the one that's most often advocated. You know, who am I? And that's good to do, and I recommend that. For my Christian background, God inquiry seemed to be the best. What is God? Who is God? I recommend both forms of inquiry. In the end, it's all about inquiry after truth. Truth inquiry. You are looking for truth, even if it means discarding every conception of self and every conception of God, which is what it will mean. And there's no shortcut in doing this. You have to go through the search. That's what the Buddha did. Is the reason why Jesus didn't begin his ministry until he was 30. He wasn't just wasting time. He was on his own spiritual search, I think. People are into shortcuts these days. People want instant enlightenment. There are lots of people who will sell you these shortcuts for the right price. I think it is best to stay away from folks who market spiritual solutions for a price. Those who have made spirituality into a business. I am wary of any man or teacher who wants to be your teacher and wants to have you as a follower, whether it's the man or woman or whoever it is. Jesus said, call no man, and he would say today, or woman teacher. He's talking about spiritual teacher. He says, call no man father, and he means spiritual father. Jesus never asked for a shekel. Buddha never asked for money. Reality does not cost money. Spiritual reality is free, here and now. It's your birthright. It is who and what you are. It doesn't cost money to be who you already are. But it does cost all of your ideas and all of your values. It costs your time and your life and your soul. It costs everything that you think you are. Give yourself unreservedly to truth, to ultimate reality, to God, the God beyond the traditional God. Lose yourself to truth, and truth will find you. And that is it for today. Grace and peace to you.